Moses tells the people of Israel to hear the statutes and decrees which I am teaching you to observe. Part of that reason for why God gives the commandments is so that we know what the path of righteousness is. God's actually revealing something about himself in the very act of telling us what is necessary in order to live in relationship with him. He tells us that he's a righteous God, a holy God. He also tells us what are the possibilities of a human being, because he doesn't command what's impossible to keep. St. James tells us not only hear, but be doers. You have to do it as well, not just have the word in your mind, but you have to practice it. Think of teaching someone to play baseball. If you don't grow up around it, first someone would need to describe to you the rules by which baseball is played so that you can understand how to go about it. But then you would need someone to teach you how to hold a bat, and you would need to swing that bat 1,000 times before it came as second nature, before you had the habit to be able to play it properly. So you have to hear the rules and you have to practice it in order to bring it about in yourself that you can actually do it. Virtue is a habit. By doing good things, by doing what's righteous and holy, by repeating that, we create a character in ourselves where doing the thing that is right comes easy. It comes as second nature. Sin also can become a habit. By repeating a certain kinds of sins, we create a habit, a character where we become weak. We do what is wrong, what is evil, easily. It's called a vice. And it's related to what we mean when we say the word vicious. By repeating sins, we create a habit that is vicious. We become vicious with regard to whatever that favorite sin is. We find ourselves doing it, and in the very midst of doing it, the inner dialogue in our head says, why am I doing this? Because we've created a habit. Jesus gets to the center of that relationship when he says in the gospel, from within people, from their hearts, come evil thoughts, unchastity, theft, murder, adultery, greed, malice, deceit, licentiousness, envy, blasphemy, arrogance, folly. All these things come from within, and they defile. St. James tells us that that desire, when it is conceived in the heart, becomes sin. And that sin, when it is full grown, brings death. Okay. Even if you tell me the rules of baseball, even if you show me how to hold the bat and have me swing it 1,000 times, there's still something that's going to be missing. It's called talent. No matter how hard I practice, I'm never going to be a great baseball player. I need something more than just the rules and just the practice. And our struggle with sin in the world is the same sort of thing. But rather than talent, something that's innate to us, we need grace, something that comes from without us. St. James says, humbly welcome the word that has been planted in you and is able to save your souls. That's word capital W. Everything depends on our relationship with Jesus. Jesus says, apart from me, you can do nothing. He doesn't say, apart from me, you can't do anything great, or apart from me, you can only do simple sorts of things. But apart from Jesus, we can do nothing. Everything depends upon him. And so we have to open our hearts to Jesus, the eternal Word, in order to have the grace which is necessary to take the hearing of the words and the practicing of it to make something out of it. St. James says, religion that is pure and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to care for orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. If we reduce Christianity to a set of moral rules that are external to us, it tends not to work out well. We might, if we have the kind of basic, virtuous, pagan kind of discipline, end up with the appearance of righteousness or the appearance of holiness. But we need something more than that. We need the heart of holiness. On the other hand, if we reduce Christianity to mere humanitarianism, taking care of the oppressed or the poor, well, we ought to do those just because they're human beings too. It's when we do it out of love for God, when the heart that God has shown us impels us to do charity towards others. Now it's no longer natural charity, but something supernatural. It's only by the grace of God that we can keep these two things together: care for orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained by the world. We need to hear the truths that God reveals. It purifies our minds and our thinkings from the thinking of the world. The thinking of the world always tends to at least some form of corruption of the way that we perceive the truth. We also need that word to go deep into our hearts and to carry it out so that we can have virtue. Virtue comes from the Latin word virtus, and it literally means strength. So how do we get that purification of our minds? How do we find that strength to do what is right? It comes back to the heart of Jesus. In the place of our weak and broken hearts, God gave to us a heart full of love. Love even unto death. A heart so pure that death could not keep it, but it rose to eternal glory. Unless we have a relationship and access to that heart, we're able to do nothing. But if we open our hearts to that love, if we allow Jesus to come into our lives, suddenly we're equipped with the grace that we need in our struggle with sin. And little by little, it is that love which purifies our hearts of whatever's broken, whatever is weak. He lends us his strength so that we can hear the truth and do it and live in the life of God's own heart.